is Gaurav. I am 2009 pass out, Aravali Hostel. Currently, I am treasurer in Alumni Association. So today we have Naveen, we have Adil, we have Pankaj, Pulkit, and Alok, and we'll begin with a brief introduction of everyone, and then we'll take a few topics and finally Q&A from everyone. So Naveen, would you like to begin?
I'll give the opportunity to Aditi.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. So I graduated in, how do you want to do this? You want a small introduction?
Feel free, sir. Give a good time.
So my name is Adil Hassan, chemical engineering. I graduated in 1984 and I am the founder of the Harvest Gold Bread Company. I recently exited that company. We ran it for about 20 odd years, and then I recently exited it in 2017, where it got sold to the global leader in that particular domain, the Mexican company, Grupo Bimbo. And now I am semi-retired, or you could say looking for the next opportunity. As an investor, as a potential founder, we are evaluating a health tech venture as on date. And let's see where that goes. Let the others introduce themselves, and then we can talk a little more about what Harvest Gold was and what are the learnings from the Harvest Gold experience for some of you who look upon entrepreneurship as a career. Please.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Adilji. So, I'm Naveen Jangira, founder of Erasmus Technologies. I done my MBA from IIT Delhi. I started Erasmus about almost 8 years back. So today I was listening to an interesting speech where they said learning and तालीम हुनर और जिगर तीन चीज की बात हो रही थी. So I think all the three are very important when it comes to startup, right? So we get the talim, everybody has it, in terms of various colleges we take, IIT for that matter. Then hunar is how do we experience that learning over the years, and then we think we are there. Only jigar will help you cross that line, right? So more on it when we discuss about it.
Hi guys, I'm Pankaj. I run a company called Clovia. We are a lingerie brand. In our jargon, I call myself a serial entrepreneur. My father calls me Jaga Jaga ke dhakke khane. So this is my third venture. First venture was a desktop-based search engine way back in 2003. Sold it off, to one of the fourth largest networks in the world. Started in the office. Then set up an edtech company way ahead of its time, 2006 to 2012. So when we knew it's going to be reality, we did not know when. And right, so all that is happening now is a very big validation. 2015 is when we launched the brand Clovia. Recently, by God's grace, we had a very sizable exit to the Reliance Group. So we sold a majority. Of course, we're still in the driving seat. We're still running the show. So it's been a phenomenal journey. Phenomenal to catch up with everyone here. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Alok Ranjan and I'm one of the co-founders of Walking Tree. We are an IT services company started in 2008 December, so we celebrated 14th year recently. Apart from Walking Tree, I will not call myself a serial entrepreneur, I'm a parallel entrepreneur. So I'm a co-founder in Kritrim, which is an AI startup, and we are trying to basically democratize AI, as everybody says, right? But then our goal is to kind of bring in artificial domain intelligence into AI and then help one domain at a time. So that's what we are doing at Kritrim. And then I own another staffing company which takes care of staffing part. So that's what I am. So maybe I'll touch base upon that.
Thank you, Alok.
Hi everyone, I'm Ankit Prasad, founder and CEO at Bobble AI. We are a conversational AI platform built on top of keyboard asset on smartphones. Right? We have a very popular keyboard called Bobble Indic keyboard. It's being used by 80 million plus users in India today. I entered in IIT Delhi in 2008, never graduated. It was a 5-year integrated MTech course in mathematics and computing. But eventually, I dropped out in 2012 to start this company. But then we were doing a very different venture at that time. I was building a social network for creative people called touchtalent.com. Later on, pivoted to Bobble in 2015, and since then it's been a great journey from 0 to 80 million plus users now. We have ventured into data as a service industry, advertising and marketing industry, commerce, and now technology as a service as well. So yeah, there's a lot of learning I would love to share along with the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ankit. We'll begin with how do we select the idea? Today, we live in a world where we read a lot, we learn a lot, and everyone, I would say, have certain ideas, whether they are into job or they are into entrepreneurship. So, how do you select and how do you zero down your idea? And I would request Pankaj if you can, share your experience or maybe your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's very it also stems from what you want to do in terms of the scale, right? I mean, we take a lot of pride in being called entrepreneurs, but frankly, a guy who's a street hawker is also an entrepreneur, right? वो customer service भी करता है, product भी अपना selection करता है, inventory भी manage करता है, right? Postal service भी करता है, telecalling भी करता है कभी-कभी, up to phone पे. So again, it's a function of what you want to do. For us, so I think we can speak for ourselves, and probably that will be simpler. For us, there were two very strong factors, and as this, दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता. So I had done entrepreneurship in edtech way ahead of its time, right? So the only question that I would ask myself constantly when we were entering the lingerie business, right? Is it a vitamin or is it an aspirin, right? So I want to be in the business of aspirin and not vitamin, right? Vitamin is which is good to have, right? It will help you do something good to yourself. Aspirin is जब सर फटा होता है, you really want to get it for yourself, right? So one is I think to be in the aspirin business, and vitamins change into aspirin with time, right? So today tech is an aspirin, right? It used to be a vitamin earlier. So I think be in the aspirin business to make it easier for yourself. I think that's one. Second is how big an impact can you make, right? Do you want to impact like 500 people around you, or is it do you want to make? So for our mission is 50 million now, right? So mission 50 million is what we want to do. 5 crore women impacted in India. That's what we want to do. So how big is the impact that you want to make? And third is like very clear math. The math has to add up. The gross margins have to add up. It cannot be a blue sky thinking without any bottom line, without any real business being created. So every great story is every great business is a great story, but every great story is not a great business. So please always keep the business aspect of the story in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting insight that, be a bania in the business and the business will tell you how to move.
And I'm a Punjabi and still I'm saying that.
So, another challenge we face is, and most of the startups where they fall is 0 to 1 stage. So, a lot of startups, they start with some idea and then they change their business model. But, going from 0 to 1 has always been the most challenging phase. And I would request Naveen if you can share your journey and your thoughts on this.
So, as you said, that if I go back as Erasmus as an example, right? So we started an IT service company for that matter, where as I said, hunar bhi tha, knowledge also there, and jigar tha. That's why we were there. But and as Pankaj said, we put all the Excel sheet, we put all the mathematics in terms of how we'll run the business. Business plan was ready, but there are many things which you don't know, until you switch the coin, right? We thought, that the first business will come so and so. So for us, the first check we received was after 9 months of starting a business, right? So that's how difficult it was in terms of the business coming back, or we've been earning the first check, not turning to green, or being profitable. It's only that first paycheck or first check which is there. So when you want to start, you need to ensure that you have those boundaries in place, that difficulty or whatever time you have there. What if the business plan does not, go the way it is supposed to be? Do you have those marathon capabilities to be there, consistently there in terms of, covering the distance or not? Everything will fall in place, but may not be 6 months down the line, may not be 1 year down the line, but you need to be ready with your whatever port of luck or goal with you in terms of being consistent and being there.
Yeah, thank you, Naveen. Another area is how do you find out your co-founder? Being a co-founder, you have a companion, and the journey alone is kind of sometimes very difficult in a startup. So, I would request Adil if you would like to share your thoughts on this.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me that, because there's an interesting background to what co-founders are all about. Before I established Harvest Gold, I was part of a company called DigiControls, and I had established this along with a set of 4 or 5 of my IIT classmates way back in 1986. And it was a successful company, and it went on to do some decent work. But I cut my ties with that company in 1990. We sold a majority stake to an external investor, and I exited. Let me tell you why. Because it's a story of how you can end up choosing the wrong partner. When I set up that company, how did I fund it? It's an interesting aspect, because if you go back to the 1980s, the fact is that the Indian startup ecosystem was conspicuous by its absence. There was none. I was an odd man out. The way I thought, the way what I wanted to do, nobody understood me. And as I was starting out, before I had my great idea of what I'm going to do to change the world, I had to find a way to fund that idea. And so I got myself, luckily enough, a job which paid $1 salary, migrated overseas, and used the arbitrage to fund a company along with a set of people who went to school with me, who went to the IIT with me. It worked well for a while because these guys were motivated in the beginning. But the problem was that we were too successful too early. And when I resigned my overseas job and came back to India to run it with them, I was expecting far more. And they were quite happy to now have a car and have a nice lifestyle. So you had people coming to office at 11 o'clock and going home at 3 o'clock and not doing anything. And that was not going to take us anywhere. You see, that is not what my vision was. That's why I sold my stake in that company. I left. The company did okay. I mean, it didn't do too well. It went on to do a couple of 30, 40 crores, but it was nowhere what it could have been the Infosys or the Wipro of that time. And that was my vision. But I had partners who just didn't want to go there. And what I learned from that experience was that your partners have to have the same vision as you. You should know where you're all going. If you have different objectives, they don't want to become an Infosys. They're quite happy to have a car and a house. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And that is one lesson. The second time around in Harvest Gold, of course, it was different. My wife was my co-founder, and that always makes for a great. It has its negatives, of course, as you can all well understand. But you have the same objective. You're trying to grow the company. And so those are the stories, I think, from my life at least, which should make sense to a lot of you. Having the right partner is super important.
to add on to what he said. If you see, I'm not sure if you've seen kayaking where two people kayak, right, together. So partnership, whether it's home partner or business partner, right? So someone is sitting ahead and someone is sitting behind on that kayak. Right? It moves with a great speed if that synergy and direction is same. Otherwise, you be running in circle or doing the top up. Right? So that's how it is. You have to align with the thought and timing. If that thought and timing is not getting aligned, then the kayak does not reach anywhere. Yeah.
I was saying it's about topic, so everybody can speak.
Yeah, please.
So, generally, I quit co-founder as like a partner, right? So literally, you can treat this as your partner, whichever way you want to treat it. But then you spend huge amount of time with your co-founder, your partner, and as Adil said, it has to have shared vision, shared goals, not for few years or few months, but then preferably lifelong if you guys can think of. I mean, that makes it like a real partner. So it's saying that at a certain point you may not get along with you, and at that point, if the exit doesn't look like a nice exit to you, you may not be the right partner for you. That would be a quick summary. But then I had a partner who exited. It took us about 2-3 years to clean up that mess. Okay, but then thank God we could. Because as a partner, everybody knows everything and all your clients, all the things you try to damage as well. Right? So choosing the right partner is important. At the same time, I think what you have to do is definitely get into a situation where you have to trust that the partner that you have is always doing the best that he can. Because the moment you start questioning and challenging, then trust is gone. The moment trust is gone, it's just a matter of time it will break. So if somebody is not willing to put the best all the time, and best can be different for different people. Like not all the 5 fingers will be same, not all the partners will be same. As long as for a given role they are putting their best, I think good. Once you decide to partner, then you cannot keep evaluating every day. So I think that's pretty much what I mean.
I think it's very important to have complementary skill sets also. So two people don't take knowledge together will not make much sense, right? So I think that becomes very important. But if you find a co-founder, I mean, you should take it in a heartbeat. Don't think about, don't be penny wise and pound foolish and think about equity and all, because if you have the right people, the synergy it creates, it's exceptional. And my co-founder is also my wife.
Oh.
And the starting days when we didn't have a team, I think conversing about choosing the right model was the most uncomfortable conversation we ever had.
Right.
In a laundry business. So jokes apart, but yeah, it changes your game completely if you have the right people.
Yeah. Thanks, Pankaj. So raising capital in a startup is always challenging as well as important. It helps you scaling the business and it goes to the next level. And I would request Ankit if you would like to share your thoughts on this.
Sorry, what was the question?
Raising the capital for the startup.
Okay. We have had our own set of good and bad experiences related to raising capital. Today, the last round we did was Series D. So have had multiple experiences of financial capital, strategic capital, angel, seed, and so on and so forth. I think it has its own pros and cons, and as an entrepreneur, one needs to assess themselves how important and how critical is it to raise funds. Different people have different speed of working. Some people want to turn into a unicorn overnight, right? And therefore they go on for subsequent raises every 6 months, right? And they burn money, which is what we call as growth at all cost, right? But then there are people who wants to run the company more sustainable manner, more long-term basis, and they don't need too much of funds right away. They probably need some funds for the initial product development, product market fit, initial revenue generation, etc. And once it becomes stable, then you start thinking about funds for expanding into other geographies or other sectors, ancillary businesses, etc. Right? So one of the probably one of the most critical learning for me during all of these series that we raised was dealing with strategic investors, right? Um, while it might sound very, organic or natural to have a partner who works on a similar kind of a business or who aspires to be in a similar business, but then having strategic on board is comes with, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, they do have the expertise to help you. They have the money to help you. They probably have the intent to help you, but because they have their own company to run, therefore sometimes intent get misaligned, and once it gets misaligned, it is very hard to come out of such situation. With financial investors, it is typically easier because they don't have their vested interest is in only in the growth of the existing company, your company. But with strategic investors, it's a little tricky. And we we were fortunate or unfortunate to have three strategic investors into our cap table, apart from a couple of financial investors. And each one belonged to a different sector altogether. So they were all trying to, tune the company towards their own sector, right? And as an entrepreneur, you are sitting in the middle and listening to everyone. And in order to make a call, you need a majority in board, you need a majority in shareholders, etc., etc. And then so apart from dealing with external factors, now you start dealing with internal factors at the same time, which is, I think, not worth it. So just think about whom you're getting in your cap table very wisely. It is not just the name of the firm that matters, it is also the partner who is coming on board matters, right? Let's say there are typical names like Sequoia, Elevation, Excel, etc. But while they have a great name or not so great name, but which partner is coming on board is I think it's more important than which firm is coming on board. How much do they believe in your vision? Similar to the learnings that we understood while finding a co-founder, I think similar criteria must be laid down for finding the right investor who can be a long-term partner in your journey.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Try to raise as less as possible. If if you're able to run your company in a bootstrap manner, nothing like it. It's the best way to go. Be profitable, run it sustainably, make it your life, make it your long-term thing. So yeah, I think that was my learning based on my share of mistakes that I did in the past.
Thanks, Ankit. This was helpful. Anyone wants to add to this topic?
I think one interesting thing is that we take a lot of pride in glorifying fundraisers. I think we should start glorifying profitable, positive businesses which have done it without funds more. I think so. A lot of media and all of us are to blame for kind of taking funding as the key on which business to evolve, right? So yeah, I think that's a very beautiful thought. I think funding is money to buy ammunition for a war. Funding doesn't mean you won the war. So
So I'll add to that. So what we were scaling fast. So naturally we had some cash flow issue. And some of my friends are working in investment bank. They have been kind of small investors. I reached out to them that hey, I'm looking for equity for you. And then he said, "Okay, show me the details." And then said, I'm very happy to take equity in your company, but that's the most expensive fund you will have. Kind of solution you need, not equity fund. You need just cash management right now. Probably debt funding will help you, or maybe overdraft kind of thing can help you, right? So the deal here is that something that you can get for 8%, 10%. For equity, you may get same thing for about 30%, 40%. Now, this is the cost of money. Which money you want to choose, that's your choice, right? But then if you choose 8, 10%, then of course you have to play the profit game. And if you want to choose 30%, then what generally people say.
So to add to what is being discussed, you must understand that I come from a different time. I'll just quote what Nandan Nilikani recently mentioned, that regardless of the fact that in today's environment there is access to capital, but you must respect capital. You must practice frugality. You must watch your expenditure like a hawk. Just because that capital is relatively easier to access as on date, doesn't mean it's for free. Somebody like me, in the context of today's world, if I look at cash burn, then cash burn in my worldview is a double-edged sword. It is essential in terms of accelerating growth, but it is not the end all and the be all. And you must keep in mind that every business, the idea itself, it has to be based on the concept of ultimately creating wealth. And that is my worldview. And I think, if you as entrepreneurs start with that thought process, you'll be a lot more successful, a lot more happier.
In fact, if I may have a slightly um, different point of view, sir, because for me, I've always told my employees, my customers, my shareholders that I'm in the business of creating happiness. While creating wealth is an outcome that is bound to happen, but for me, what is most important is happiness index within the company, within the customers, within the partners and shareholders. So,
So you can go back to what Anji has said earlier. You should decide where you want to go, whether you want to be an Infosys of the world, Wipros of the world, or you are happy being driving a car and coming to office and going back.
Yeah.
So that's your call at the end of the day. What is it? So as you said, so if you say Erasmus also, our motive is that every day is a great day, and that's where we start with. And then we build around, whatever number of floors or studios we want to build over.
I mentioned because many times I've seen companies in the name of increasing the profits or wealth creation for shareholders. Sometimes they do things which is not human, right? Which is against the concept of happiness. So that kinds of uh,
So you are in a jungle. You need to know what is your animal spirit is like.
yeah.
True. I think that has to be a given. You have to create a great company with a set of ethics, with a set of human values. Nobody's denying you that. I was just telling you that cash burn versus wealth creation. That is what I was focusing on. I mean, I'm not questioning the fact that you are creating happiness.
Probably we are aligned with the old school of thought. You should.
No, I think what I've realized
one bird in hand is better than two in the bush. Is that what we are coming from? And probably the new age people are at a different mindset.
You can create wealth and happiness together.
Yes,
Yeah, of course.
they're not mutually exclusive.
Means happiness eventually. So we move to
This is not about putting the money in somebody's pocket.
True. So IIT Delhi has 21 unicorn founders, and that's not a coincidence. There must be something very unique within the IIT Delhi ecosystem. And today we will learn from the panel that what is that secret sauce in the IIT Delhi ecosystem that so many startups have become unicorns. So many startups have raised multiple round of funds, and they have become successful in whichever domain they have been. So I would request any of the panelists to take this topic and share their thoughts.
So I'll start with the jigar hoga tabhi shift karoge. I think that's where IIT as a brand and logo, you have that confidence, right? That yes, you can be there. And other side also because they see as a brand, right? So they also get that confidence. That confidence matches, and that's where probably one of the success probably, or that confidence thing.
I'm sure.
I think what we learned taught is handling pressure. I think one of the most interesting things that has happened to me so most of the times I was doing theatre here, right? For 5 years I did just theatre, and also managed to, with help of friends, I managed to kind of cross my minimum requirements as well. So I think that the takeaway that I had, and I see this pattern in most of us, right? I think two things. One is managing pressure is something that just comes naturally to us. And I think I've seen people, so now works with us, right? So he's from D 2 years, right? I'll give him some work and I'll give somebody else some work. The first reaction is how will it happen? This one will say how it will happen. So how hota hi nahi question. I think that's the beauty of the spirit that's been created. That's one. And I think so. I think that's mainly it. It's pressure handling. Other is there's a lot of out of the box thinking which somehow gets created here. I still have to crack that code of how, but it gets created in some way. We'll think some weird way to manage problems which others would think in a very rote way.
Right.
I think I'll take it back to your JEE preparation. So when you prepare for JEE, generally you get into the fundamentals.
Right.
And when you attack any problem through fundamentals, generally you figure out something.
Very true.
I think that was the reason.
No, definitely. And one aspect is, which we have done after talking to startup founders, the IIT Delhi ecosystem helps you a lot when you are in your journey of building a startup.
Yeah.
Right.
I think love for the alma mater comes into play here. If I have to meet Pankaj sir or Adil sir,
Yeah.
I'm sure if I just ping him on LinkedIn saying I'm your junior from IIT Delhi, would you like to meet me? I won't have to stand in a queue and get appointments, and I'll probably get into their office more quickly than anybody else, right? So that helps. And typically, if you look at the VC ecosystem or the sort of successful companies that have been created in the past, at the decision making roles, we see all our seniors sitting there, so it becomes easy. Right?
Very true. Very true.
It's a very interesting anecdote. So my first VC meeting ever in life, right? And I was sweating like the first week because it's very big deal, right? So पहली बार VC से बात कर रहे हैं. And I met the guy. He was like cross questioning and this and that and a lot of stress and stuff. And then he said, "What college?" I said, "IIT Delhi." "कौन सा hostel से?" And after that, it's so simple. So
I think Pankaj, you have raised fund from Ivy also, right?
yes, Vikram, of course. So,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So that's all IIT.
Exactly.
Yeah. So board meetings were a lot of samosa parties.
Really interesting. So, one aspect is when, like IIT Delhi is such a big brand, when you go to the red carpet welcome by your seniors, your colleagues. So it comes with a big responsibility also, right? We have seen in the past stories of Ashmi Grover, couple of others who have, who have been a bit of controversial in the domain. So I want to understand from the panel how this responsibility come to you as a IIT Delhi founder.
I think it's not just IIT Delhi. I think any businessman, if you are going to be successful in what you do, must practice a set of ethics, which I think you just mentioned, and must abide by a set of value systems. And when you do that, then you will be a more successful businessman. You will be more respected, and you will automatically also, I think, stand by the values of what this institute is all about.
So it's just not only, probably studying. So if you see, business is all about trust, right? Too. So how do you create the trust, right? As Naveen, it's only I started my this entrepreneurial journey only about 8 years back, right? But Naveen is in the working class for last 25 years, right? So it's not that I've started being a only last 8 years. It's Naveen as an individual, Naveen as a brand, right? How do people around me trust, right? How do they see Naveen? It's not that every time they see opportunity, right? So I see Adil is okay, is VC, so and so, and that's a point of view. If I see it, then does not make life easy for me as well as success easy for me, right? So I see everybody as a natural friend and as an individual human being, and all things as this is money will come later. Obviously, it'll come if you have right friend, right. So that's how it has to be, right? It is not IIT. It's you have to been driven.
Let me share a small story just to sort of demonstrate how value systems can contribute to your success ultimately. I was very happy to hear somebody here tell me that, Harvest Gold, wow, what a brand, you've built a great brand, you built a great company. And let me give you one of the stories that demonstrate the foundation on what it was built as an example of a value system. 1993, we were about to launch. We manufactured this 50,000 rupees worth of bread. On that, I think it was the second or the third week that those goods had to go out. And one of the mistakes that had been made was that the building was deficient, and there was a sandstorm. Because of a sandstorm, the dust leaked through the building, went into the bread, and you had this massive batch of product which was had kirkir or which was obviously deficient. So here we were, and the manager in charge said, "Look, sir, nobody's going to notice. Just send it out. We can't afford to lose 50,000 rupees. We're a very small company." And my dad and I were standing there and said, "No, we're not going to do this. Okay, we're going to burn this." And the guy was aghast. He said, "You can't do it. You can't afford this." I said, "No, we are going to burn this." And that's what we did do. And that story, so that story shows you that what value systems you practice will become the foundation of your company, because these people who surrounded us at that time learned from us, the owners of the company, that we must follow a certain value system. They become the foundation on which your company stands. Today, when you hear of Infosys, you have the stories of Narayan Murthy saying that these are the value systems I follow. They come from somewhere where respect then flows to that company. It becomes the foundation of your company's success.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So when we started company, everybody is asking, what is your mission? What is your vision? That's where we told that you should have these two when you start a company, right? Says nothing doing. For me, what matters is value. And that's what I defined as these are the value system which we want to have it and then built on top of it.
For that matter, one-off cases of controversies could be very subjective and I don't think when we read those controversies, we related it happened because of the IIT Delhi background. It never came to my mind that it happened because of the IIT Delhi background. So I think those exceptions could be very subjective and need not be related to the alma mater whether it belongs.
But on the contrary, there's one interesting story.
Yeah, so I'm saying, you can't be 100% right and it's like you'll always have one side of it which get triggers, at some point in time, So it is so I think we can leave some. So nature has its own,
Chan mein bhi daag hai.
Yes.
But what you were saying, what you started with was very, very right, by the way, that, how does this ecosystem help? I think one thing that I taught all of us, first thing I taught was humility, in the sense that you came like very smart asses from your own little towns, and all of a sudden realized that every guy next to you is sharper and smarter than you. Right? I think that humility you have to carry with you forever. If you forget, then you forget. But it's a brilliant learning place for humility, because everybody else is smarter, right?
Not just that, you took PS 120 class and then teacher asked you, how the hell you got into IIT? I don't know. Mr. Ramamurthy yesterday, he used to insult like JE8, JE2, like,
Oh,
come on, how did you get into IIT?
right.
So then your ego is gone.
So I think there are 2-3 things that do happen. One is that the brilliant peer group that surrounds you contributes to your development. There is the sense of being able to achieve anything that you set your mind to. I think that also is nurtured by the IIT. And today, when you already have this track record that you are talking about, that देखो हमारे यहाँ से वो 20 लोगों ने unicorn बना ली है, I think it builds on itself.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, also I think the IIT now did always have a role, and now has a increasingly larger role in creating entrepreneurs who will go on to create wealth.
think,
Yeah, very true.
Bakshi ji said that I'm ready to, invest 100 crore
Yeah.
if we have, better humans, in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of IIT.
So, our next topic is when you build a company, you have so many functions. You have HR, you have technology, you have hiring challenges, you have raising capital. As a founder in this chaos, how do you keep the focus? You keep the ship in moving in the right direction because you are the captain of the ship when you are the founder. So, I would like to know from the panel how has been their experience when they were the captain of the ship and the ship was moving in the right direction.
I will start, because
Please,
my
please.
journey is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this. So when you see IT companies, then you want to start another company. You don't want to be IT services company. We started like that. We had some saving accounts, some cash there. So of course we are aware that we are spending our own cash. We're very, very careful about that. Then we couldn't make money for about a year and a half or so. In that whole process, right? I mean, there is always a situation where you have to hire. There is a situation where you have to choose whether you want to take a job or not, which can fetch you money, but it can take your focus away from the core job that you want to do. Right? Really, it is that ultimately you have to decide if you want to run the company, you have to get the job done that needs to be done. And as a founder, that's your job actually. Do whatever is needed to run your company. If that means you have to find a customer, you go and find it. If that means you have to hire the best guys, you have to take their interviews, you do it. You have to somehow onboarding, do it. Basically, you have to do it every possible thing in the beginning, at least. You keep growing, it continues to become easier and easier. There are different challenges, but then initially you have to be ready to do whatever nobody's striving to do. And as long as you have that attitude, I think you do. There will be people who will come and say, yeah, I like technology, I will be CTO. For you, I mean, the thing here is that at least for you, somebody is taking technology role.
I'd like to add to that. I think, in our own story, I have to admit that in the first few years, although we were wildly successful, we could have grown a lot more, a lot faster. And one of the mistakes that I made was that I did not understand how to bring in the right people, the people who could have grown the company at an accelerated pace. And I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg story. You may not be able to attract the best people because they don't want to work for a smaller company. How is it going to become a bigger company without them? So there is always that challenge. But looking back and in hindsight, and of course we did correct course at some point of time, my advice would be that one, try and see if you can get professional consultancy. HR consultancy is a great example. There are Randstads of the world that will come in and advise you. There is obviously the option of surrounding yourself with extremely smart people if you can get them. In today's world, ESOPs as a great incentive, I think, are a great option. And I think that you must recognize that this team building that I'm talking about can be far more critical to your success than even finance. You see, money is actually easier to find, especially in today's world. It's the people. This sounds like a cliche. It's repeated ad infinitum in all the management textbooks. But if you don't have the right people, you are not going to be that successful. So find the absolutely best people that you can and who are willing to come and work for you.
I think it's brilliantly said, because I think more important than selling your story to the VC, is selling your story to the people, the initial folks, right? And I got the opportunity to meet Marissa Mayers, when she was at the helm of Google, since way back, I think 2007 or 8. And this is the only question asked. I said that, when the company is small, you're able to create a very intrinsic, cohesive, nature of the whole organization. But when it becomes like 100,000 people, how do you still manage to keep the same beauty of the organization through? And answer was so brain dead simple. She said just have the right nucleus to start with, and it all flows in. So I think that was the only learning that I took, and every business has just been about get the right folks at whatever cost, of course, and you will not have the money. So then you'll have to pitch your story. I mean, again, you have to.
Actually, it's very, very difficult because one, you will not have money probably, and second, brand, to get attractive people, right? But you need to keep trying. There are good people out there who will buy your story and join you.
So very interesting anecdote. Up till like 2 years ago, 30 to 40% of people working in our company didn't tell their families that they work for a lingerie company because they're taboo. They would say a apparel company में काम करता है. What's the
Actually, you're looking
initial
for
initial is?
like suits more, your story. Probably you may not be able to attract a startup to a people are looking for, because they look for a different brand condition. You need to figure out what is that your or the other aspect of it.
Yep. So now the forum is open to audience also. And if any one of you wants to ask a specific question, the panel will help you. You can raise your hand and you can ask the question. Yep.
The right people has been a great challenge for me. So, is there a wide connection that we can call it? Like if I meet somebody and I just feel like, okay, this is connected. Can that be a good point of judgment? Like, okay, let's explore this person.
Sorry, I did not get your name.
Shrey.
Shrey. So there are two parts of the story, right? We all spoken on the right kind of partner you need to have in place. You should have this capability. You should have that capability, right? But when you go out looking for partner, right? It is not that which is driving, right? So in a sense, that feel has to be there. Yes, he is the right. Then you go for it, right? अगर वो feel नहीं है, even if it's the right technology, right everything, tomorrow the path may be different, right? Even whatever, once you are in kayak, you should be there, right? In the same direction as you are.
But it's a great starting point. It's catching the right vibes is a great starting point. But you have to. So one thing that I always tell HR team, the quality of your hunt is as strong as your hunger, right? So if you're already stomach is fed, you will not fight that hard, right? So I think it's always a function of looking for the people who are as hungry as you are, right? Who will probably run faster than you. So I think that's where the vibe matters. If you say if I got it correct. And then it's just
Starting point.
that's a great starting point.
Stop exploring further and just try to make it.
Yeah. And then of course you have to see 2 points: intelligence and diligence.
Yeah.
If a person is very intelligent and not diligent enough, then it's a problem. And if a person is very diligent but not intelligent at all, I think that's a HR nightmare because you can't fire the guy. Is very hard working.
Two of the panelists has their partner as a wife, right? Without that wife, it would not have.
Co-founder is out of this conversation.
Yeah.
So
please.
can I just add to what these two gentlemen have just been telling you? In my worldview, and it's important for me to share this with you, is this because you talked about a why, right? First of all, who are you looking for? There have to be certain qualities. अगर आप CFO ढूंढ रहे हो उसको कुछ और qualities चाहिए, CTO is going to be a different person, and so on and so forth, right? Having said that, I never trusted myself to hire anybody. I would fall in love with the guy, the vibe that you talk about, right? So I had a set of people, consultants, internal company people who were good at what they did. They would evaluate the people. And I left it to their discretion कि यार ये बंदा सही है या नहीं है. Does he check all the boxes, whether it's functional skills, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. And so my answer to your question would be, it cannot be one person selecting these people that you're talking about. It has to be a set of people. And you should be looking for certain skill sets. And the people who are doing the selecting have to have a proven track record of being able to find the right people. Why doesn't do it?
So, as Pankaj said, confidence has to matter, along with the vibes.
Would be a good starting point, but definitely not the ending point, because many a times, I'm sure everybody must have experienced, the great first impression might not be a long-lasting one, right? So there has to be a series of exploration. Like mentioned, we always take help from our peers, our other CXOs, board consultants, advisors, to do interactions with that person whom you have identified. And once there is a series of interaction, then you are able to take a more informed decision. Many times before hiring a CXO level person, we also get into a consultancy agreement with them for 3 to 6 months period, because this is the period when you actually realize the true potential or the other side of that person, right? So a great first impression might not be the right criteria to jump into a formal agreement with them.
And there are always chances of failure, right? You see serial entrepreneurs, right? So they would have, experience with one failure, second failure, or one success, or second success, right? So that could be always. So you should go ahead, not stop.
Also, the mistake that you could make ending up hiring the wrong person is a very expensive mistake. It costs you anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years, and of course the cost of the lost opportunity.
But once you know that, synchronization is not happening or it's not the right, it's better to disengage early to avoid that whatever wastage of time.
I think you were asking something.
What my answer?
Okay.
So, please, your wife is your partner.
Talking to me? Yeah.
So, what kind of problems do we normally face? Because it's very difficult to find a co-founder when you're working on a concept for 3 years continuously. You might get good employees, maybe, but then still don't find a co-founder out of them.
Right.
And you end up finding only your co-founder as your wife. In that case, what to do?
Right. So first of all, the fact that your wife is a co-founder has to be based on merit. Okay, the wife has to bring professional expertise or some level of skill sets to the organization for it to be able to work. Right. In my case, I was lucky. She was an MBA. And she had the sales skills that complemented my own skill sets. She had the administrative skills. She had the HR skills. So she bought the necessary skills, and that is vital. It cannot be that BV hai to aa jao bhaiya hamare saath aa jao. It doesn't work that way.
The spouse cannot be a fallback.
Yeah,
That's not the way it works.
So that's the first requirement. The second is, yes, the relationship has its pluses and minuses. The advantages are that obviously your interests are aligned in terms of the benefits to the organization. The disadvantages are that it can, unless you establish the rules to whose opinion is going to matter when, it can become a problem, okay, in certain areas, and could lead to strife and mistakes, okay. So those are areas that you have to be careful about. You must sit down together, work it out professionally to the extent that that's possible. I would say you still get it right 80% of the time, and I'm sure Pankaj will agree with me on that, because वो फिर लड़ाइयां घर जाती हैं कि ऐसे नहीं होगा कि ऐसे होगा. You're not talking to each other for 2 days because that office fallout. You try and set the rules for that also. It doesn't always work perfectly. So it's a mixed bag. I think overall, depending on how maturely you handle it, it works out well. It works out well. But you have to set the ground rules. You have to have the understandings with each other.
And they give you some very technical rule set around it. So it's a very interesting thing. The way we do it is that we have a group of 5 people, CXOs, and whenever there is something that is mission critical, we put it to a vote. And everybody has one veto a month, literally like that, right? So So then it becomes a very democratic ecosystem where people can put in their stuff and, all of a sudden becomes simple. But if it works out and your spouse, I will not say wife because it's the other. So, if the spouse is your co-founder, right? The level of trust that comes with it is phenomenal because then everything changes, you don't have to bother about anything. So the pluses are amazing.
The value of trust is that, like you gain immediate efficiency.
So that's what, the trust which comes in the picture, right, in your partner.
By the way, you can think beyond spouses in your family because for example, my co-founder is actually my elder brother. He is also my CTO. Right? So there could be other members in your family who could be a potential co-founder. So think beyond spouses.
Yeah, please.
I have a connecting question. How VC sees the founding company, couple as a founder, how VC.
Brilliant question. So I don't know, so how it's been because you would have gone to that at a much later stage, right? For us, it was like that time, Shop Clues, Mu Sigma, everything had happened, right? And the first thing they would say is, how are you two getting along? So of course, I think there was a time when this used to be a problem, but there are so many, by God's grace, there's so many success stories out there that people start to understand the value.
So to answer, sorry, to answer that. So let me, I had no VCs. I was profitable from month one. Okay, we made money hand over fist right from that beginning. I never needed VCs. But let me answer that question for you because when we sold the company to Grupo Bimbo in 2017, and we sold 65% stake, retained 35%, and we were supposed to run it for them for 3 years, which we did. One of the conditions, interestingly, was that if the two of us got divorced in that 3-year period, then they would take over the company. So I think the VCs or any investor, in this case, it was Grupo Bimbo, saw the importance of the couple getting along as important to the success of the venture. So they view it as a potentially beneficial thing, but they also take into account the risk that is inherent in that.
So it's just like strength, right? So complementary skills. There is no diversion of interest, it remains there. Those are positive. Negative is being failure point, right? And, one dispute and another everything falling apart.
But we saw that the question in 2015. We didn't see it in 2020. Yeah, that was the context.
We have more questions from the audience. Yeah. Question and observation for Ankit. You said you did not complete your full degree of master's program. Was successful. So how do you address this to all the youngsters who are probably still studying? I'm always concerned that a person who sort of, we all talked about JE and the ecosystem of things and competitive spirit and all that. I think it's a very big decision. Would you like to tell us, what made you decide not to complete your degree? Must be father of confidence or complete disinterest in what you do. What was it? Because let it not be a wrong example for many people who may believe that grades or degrees se kuch nahi hoga. Other things which are
hota hai, bahut kuch hota hai. But so I had this entrepreneurial bug right from my school days. So it didn't happen in college; it happened even in school days. When I started my first company when I was in class 10th. It was again with my elder brother, as my co-founder in that company as well. And my father is the salesperson. And we used to build web-based solutions for local businesses in Jamshedpur in Tier 2 city. When I entered in IIT in 2008, first of all, I was always involved in more of extracurricular than academics. I was more involved in different clubs and houses and trophies and also was running my service business in parallel. Right? So right from the beginning, I was least interested in studies, honestly speaking. and the decision to drop out was not taken overnight. It happened over a period of time when daily classes became, weekly, and then became monthly, and then only exams, and then skipped some exams and realized, oh, I skipped exam, right? Moved out of a hostel in my fourth year and took a rented apartment in Vasant Kunj. Um, got peers surrounding me who were more driven for entrepreneurship, for startups. So I don't see it as a decision to not take a degree, but rather it just happened. And I started doing quite well in this startup myself. And therefore I was least interested in coming back to college for the piece of paper, because I had already spent 4.5 years in the campus, made good friends, made good relationships, so that I don't lose out on that alumni, the power of alumni base that IIT carries. And the outcome is visible. I'm sitting in the IIT Delhi Alumni Association event while not technically not qualifying as an alumni here, right? So I think that period that we spend during the campus life, um, and the experiences that we go through, like Pankaj mentioned about the pressures that we take, peers that we meet, etc., help us build ourselves. And I think it is much more rewarding than a piece of paper. That experience of living the campus life in IIT Delhi is much more rewarding than that piece of paper which is given in the last day. And therefore, I still don't regret, neither my family regrets, uh, because eventually it turned out well. In case it wouldn't have worked out for me, then I might have had to go back or to take some job in some company where degree might have been required. But in that case, I would have chosen another startup to work for, which doesn't look at degrees. Because today's startups don't look at degrees at all, right? Um, so that is why I don't see it as a deterrent anywhere in the life going forward. Yeah, I hope I was able to clarify. It is not a cool thing to do. It is not at all a cool. I don't take pride in doing that. I mentioned that as a fact because I was sitting in an alumni association event. Otherwise, I hardly mention this anywhere. In fact, my LinkedIn says IIT Delhi. That's it.
So,
Right?
what advice you like to give the students?
Um, the only advice I usually give to all the younger folks, younger than me, is, is follow your passion. Wherever it is, whatever it is, you're definitely going to do a great, achieve great outcomes in your life if you're following your passion. Your first question, if I remember, was choosing an idea. And I remember, when I look at entrepreneurs out there, when they are doing market research analysis to see how big the market is, whether we would be interested, whether I'll be able to find the talent for that idea or not, whether this is needed, etc., etc. But I feel if you're passionate for that idea, for solving that problem, just go for it. How does it matter how large the market is? How does it matter whether VCs will be interested or not? If you care for that idea, go ahead and solve it. Once you solve it, you'll build enough value for yourself and for the ecosystem, right? So, I think passion is the only advice or suggestion that I give to youngsters. Follow your passion, whatever it is, wherever it is. Thank you.
You will learn the swimming only once you jump in the pool.
Because even students, while JEE counseling जब होती है, लोग बोलते हैं, अच्छा रैंक वन लास्ट टाइम किधर गया था, कौन सा आईआईटी में गया था, कौन सा डिपार्टमेंट लिया था, हम भी वहीं जाएंगे, right? I mean, that's a very narrow way of viewing things, I would say. Broaden your perspective uh, to at least be honest with yourself. What you want to learn. If you are passionate about civil, why not go for civil even if you're rank one, right? Why do you have to choose computer science just because rank one takes it? that honesty with oneself needs to be there to respect your passion and your own happiness, right? Because if you're following your passion, you're happy no matter what the outcome is.
Yeah, that was really insightful. So any, yeah, please.
So one question for Adil. So you obviously in a very hyper competitive, consumer facing service, and you always were being profitable. So what was the trade-off in, what was the mental model and what was the North Star metric? Was it, that you're chasing a certain level of growth every year and optimizing for the profits, or, you had, how are you thinking about it?
Sorry, what is your question? I didn't understand.
Like,
Was
what
I
is-
chasing profit?
There must have been trade-off between, going for a certain level of growth year on year or, building a certain margin of profitability in the business. So what was, some of the deciding factors, or you'd have considered? Was there a North Star metric? Was the growth
So
or?
let me try and answer that question. The design of the business was almost perfect in how it was conceptualized. We came in when bread was being sold at 5 rupees, and I must credit this to my father because I was not convinced at that time that this was the right way, and he insisted that we introduce it at a premium price of 7 rupees. Those were the prices then. And it was one of the foundations of our success. Those 2 extra rupees from day one allowed us multiple benefits. It allowed us to create a superior product. It allowed us to give far higher retailer margins. It allowed us to invest in R&D, which continued to be our reason for success. But above all, it gave us huge cash flows, huge positive cash flows. And it was required in the market. There was nobody else doing it. Everybody else was selling that 5 rupee product in that wax paper. We came in with this bright paper, poly wrap, stood out, direct distribution, great brand name, premium pricing. We were sold out in 1 month. First month we were doing 110%. There used to be a line outside my office. 200 retailer बैठे रहते थे, बाबू जी हमें पहले हमें माल दे दो. That continued for 2-3 years. These guys never woke up. I mean, the existing players didn't wake up. It took them 2-3 years to even respond. कि यार क्या करें, कैसे करें? Nothing happened. And then we just kept building on that success. Incidentally, the technology for bread manufacturing was missing. That was the reason they made such horrible products. Okay, we got into that mess. We created that technology. Okay, 100 गुना महंगी मशीनें आती थी इंग्लैंड से. हम जाके स्क्रैप यार्ड से खरीद के लेके आए. And this is innovation for you guys. How do you innovate? मैं ब्रेड बना रहा हूँ, मेरे पास टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है, ठीक है, मैंने मशीनें यहाँ लोकल खरीदी हैं, आधे टाइम चलती हैं, आधे टाइम नहीं चलती हैं. मुझे पता है मेरा भी वही हाल होने वाला है जो ब्रिटानिया और मॉडर्न का हुआ था, क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी बकवास है, 1930s की करप्टेड टेक्नोलॉजी है. क्या करूं मैं गया यूके, मैंने कबाड़ियों के यहाँ से आई वेंट एंड बॉट सेकंड हैंड मशीन फ्रॉम कबाड़ीज वेयर आई गॉट द डिजाइन बैक. आई क्रिएटेड एन इंजीनियरिंग टीम which reverse engineered those machines. And that's how we built the technology. That technology exists till date. Okay, nobody has caught up with us. So today we are able to manufacture an industrial size oven. I think it costs us about $1 million. The Germans do it for 5 million, the Americans, everybody in the West does it for 5 times the price. And they are nowhere near the quality of that oven that we built. उस अवन को we put all the IIT engineering into it. They were classmates of mine. मेरे बैच का All India number 56, JAT number 1. He was designing the AI based interfaces that ran those machines. That oven can dance. So that machine continues to produce spectacular bread. One reason why I got bought out by Grupo Bimbo was not the FMCG market of India. They got that. Through me, they got that, but they got those machines also. Because we never sold those machines to anybody. That was the company's USP. We kept it with ourselves. We used it only for our plants. And Bimbo today has those machines. So they're going to build them and send them to Argentina. They're going to send them globally, wherever they have plants. and it's going to give them that competitive edge. But one of the offshoots of this strategy of continuous innovation, whether it was the brand or the packaging or the direct distribution, that also is still unique to us. Nobody else does it in India. And the equipment has been this record profitability. We are profitable. We were spectacularly profitable throughout our history. Our graph looks like this. So, again, lesson for all of you who are trying to become entrepreneurs. What was the reason? Continuous innovation. रास्ते में अगर दीवार है, उसको ऊपर से जाना है, साइड से जाना है, या होल पंच थ्रू करना है. I think that's the lesson that I'm trying to give all of you from our story. Sorry for taking so long. I mean, it was important that.
We have a last question from the panel, and then we close because the next event is about to start, the Sam Hall event. Any last questions? So I think that's it. So thank you, the panel, for the insightful stories, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Now I think we have the Sam Hall event is about to start in some time. So I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you guys. Yeah.